All right, we are live.
Good. Okay, Ron, thank you. Good morning. This is the Public Works Committee, 8 a.m. November 5th, virtual meeting due to COVID pandemic 19. Changing the way we do our public comments. Second meeting, I guess we've had Desiree doing this different. And I don't think we had any this time, but you can see the instructions if you would like to for the future meetings anyway. You can still provide public comment via a comment form, and that link is also on the agenda. So first item of business is call to order and acknowledge that the press and public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Second item is approval of previous meetings minutes. I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rusty. Any
I
changes?
have one
Rusty?
correction.
Nope, go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, we have proposed amendment. Donnie, go ahead.
In my statement about invoice of $2,600, not $26,000.
Thank you. Under item 4, Nicole.
Thank you.
Anything else, Donnie?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Rusty, anything from your view? You good?
No.
Okay. Approval pending that change. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is citizens' comments. Ron, I don't think we had any for this meeting this go round, right?
We did not, no.
Well, we did not receive any written comments, but we do have Kelly Thorlerson who
Yep.
followed the instructions to speak to you all during citizens' comments, and she's joining us via Zoom now.
Perfect. Kelly, welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Kelly Thorvaldson, South Carolina Aquarium. And I'm just gonna get to my notes really quickly so I can do you all have the numbers that I submitted, the litter numbers compared?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to comment on the smoking ban that was passed last December and went into effect January of this year. I'll preface this entire comment by saying I'm fully aware of the incredible challenges that COVID-19 put on the Isle of Palms, and that the smoking ban became a much lower priority this year, as it had to. But as we near the end of 2020 and have learned somewhat to live with this pandemic, I hope that you'll agree it's important to put a plan in place for education and enforcement of this ordinance in 2021. I've compared litter data entered into the Litter Free Digital Journal from 2019 before the ban and 2020 after the ban. And I've actually made 2 comparisons, Isle of Palms total beach litter and then Howard Hoag's beach litter. His litter, especially this year, comprises the majority of the litter that has been captured. And because his methodology is so is similar for every sweep, I just thought it was really important to share his data. So with total beach litter, the percentage in 2019 of cigarette and cigar litter versus total is 27%, and then 2020, 25%. It's only a 2% drop. Makes sense with the inability to really put energy and focus behind this ban. Howard Hoag's litter is different though. It shows a 6% drop from 32% in 2019 to 26% this year. And that could be because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's one sign at the public entrance near Coconut Joe's that has the smoking ban, that smoking is not allowed on the beach. And so because he is so consistent in where he sweeps, and it is around that area from basically from Windjammer to County Park, that may be why we're seeing a slightly greater reduction in that particular area. Of course, all of this data only provides a small snapshot of actual cigarette litter on the Isle of Palms beaches. So cigarette butts, as you all know, they're full of chemicals and plastic and are toxic to wildlife. The potential to make a significant difference here is profound. Nationwide, more than 300 coastal communities have smoking bans on their beaches. So this is not a new type of legislation. And those communities that have spoken out about the success of their bans report that not only is cigarette litter significantly reduced, but that it's self-policed when there's clear signage about the ban for beachgoers. as you're aware, Sullivan's Island passed a smoking ban on their beach at the same time you did. Isle of Palms Council did. And although I haven't taken a closer look at that data on Sullivan's, I know that they don't have a beach Santa and they don't have a group like the Isle of Palms cleanup crew getting those litter numbers. So the numbers or the data isn't likely to show a clear picture like it does on the Isle of Palms. But in addition to Sullivan's, Folly Beach is in the early stages of discussing a smoking ban. And they are looking to Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island to see how, how they can join forces with you in kind of reclaiming your beaches from this really harmful litter. It is incredibly disrespectful, just the amount of litter, but certainly the amount of cigarette butts that are left on these beaches. And I, for one, am ecstatic that that the beaches in Charleston County are trying to get a handle on this. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about this. Thank you.
Yeah, Kelly, thanks for joining us and thanks for the work you guys do. Broader than just litter control. It's a great organization. So thank you for joining us.
Part of the reduction may be because of earlier this year, the beaches were not utilized the way they normally would be as well, because of COVID, social distancing and that sort of thing. So that might be one reason for some of the reduction in these numbers here.
Yeah, I didn't dig down into like the months. I think, when we couldn't get out to do litter sweeps on the beaches. I mean, nobody was out there. So definitely I think that we would see, if we saw litter numbers, it would be from residents picking up litter and putting the data in. But I think when the beaches were open back up, they did get busier. And I feel like Howard Hoag's data was, after it picked back up and the numbers were decent. And beach litter is one problem, and it's a significant problem, but wow, Howard Hoag has a tremendous amount of street data too, and parking lot data on litter, on cigarette litter, and just litter in general. It is such an issue, and I just feel like it's a growing issue, and if we can't get a handle on this, you guys, it's just going to be out of our control. If it's not already a little out of our control, it's bad stuff.
Kelly, am I interpreting your comment right? The need for signage may be broader along the beach from your view?
I think signage is key. I know that the CVB has a plan to work with you and Sullivan's Island on getting a campaign out there. And I think that's important, but a lot of people could miss that sort of educational campaign from the CVB. I think clear signage is important. And I don't know if anyone has seen Sullivan's Island's new signage, but they have big marquees as you're entering the island. And then once you're on the island that say, these single-use plastics are not allowable on the beach, and smoking is not allowable on the beach. You can't miss these signs. And so I am eager to see, how that bears for them in their smoking on the beach. And if you were to talk to Howard Hoag right now, he would tell you that there's a lot of money being left on the table here because of the sheer numbers. I think he calculated something like for every cigarette, if you were able to enforce the ban and capture everyone that was smoking, it would be something like $18 million.
Desiree, did you have comment?
Yeah, I did. I did want to include that we did order some signs very similar to the ones that Sullivan's Island has, and we have been installing those marquee type looking signs in some of our beach access paths. We've started with the ones that are most heavily utilized, and every year we try to add one or two. Ultimately, we would like to have them in all beach access paths, and no smoking signs have been included in those that have been installed on the island. So we can do an inventory and see, what beach access paths, may be well served with more signage, and definitely we'll continue with our plan to incorporate that throughout the island. And we're also eager to restart the conversation with the CVB. We had a a full-blown education plan with them and Sullivan's before COVID happened. But I think we'll be in a good position to revisit that before next summer.
Yeah. Thank you, Desiree. Kelly, anything else before we go?
That's it. Thank you so much for allowing me to comment today.
Absolutely. Thanks for signing up. And again, thanks for your organization and what you guys do for us. Very much appreciated, for the community broadly.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks, Kelly.
Bye.
Rick, if you guys can hang in there with us for a little bit, we'll do a couple more items on the agenda and then get rocking. So thank you for that. Department reports. Mr. Pitts, you want to cover yours? All this is in the package, Rusty. Both reports are.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the garbage collection, you can see we're just rolling as average from the 2018 year. So it's no uptick, same amount of folks, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yard debris, if you'll look at the 2018 number versus the 2020, because 246, part of that was part of the Dorian, remnants of Dorian. So I think the yard debris for 2020 is up a little bit. But we're all under control on the yard debris. I think weekly we're covering and cleaning the entire island with no issues right now.
Okay, thank you.
I will tell you that under the sanitation section over here, 68.79 tons of miscellaneous is very high for the month. Abnormally high in my opinion. And we're having to go all the way to Palmetto Commerce Parkway, which is might as well be Ladson to deliver those loads. That's a little bit of a strain as well. And that's relatively new. Vehicle maintenance, as you can see, it was 2860 for the rebuild of the brake system under one of the flatbeds.
Yeah.
Other than that, and we still just spent $6,500. So we're well under budget forecast. I will tell you, I did have the whole hydraulic bank system rebuilt on my Tink bucket. It took my IT-14G out of commission for about 10 to 12 days last month. And, but those were the original, it was the original bank, the original hoses up underneath that connection point. So at a 10-year-old apparatus, I think we did fared well, but there's going to be a fairly significant expense there, about $4,500. But 10 years and a $4,500 invoice, I think that's, and we'll still stay within the budget.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's all I have. I'm going to defer the rest to Robert. But when we get to the meeting section of Robert and Robert completes, I have one insert.
Very good. Thank you, Donnie.
Okay, Robert.
Sure. Okay, we've had EDs out on the island and they've been working on the Methodist Church. There's actually 2 drop inlets there that had been covered probably for almost about 20 years. We also found that there's a drainage culvert behind that runs between the Methodist Church, which is 21st and 22nd, and EDs has been working on the vegetation cleanup there. Since they went through, those pipes are clean. They had a little bit of a flooding issue at the Methodist Church, but now I think once those have been cleaned, there shouldn't be a problem there. Also working on a estimate for pipe repair on 23rd. We spoke about this several times. I've actually gotten some numbers back on that. That would be the drainage system on 23rd and Hartnett. That has always been an issue. And then also on Driftwood, we had a separation of a pipe that had a flat valve on it. So during those extreme high tides that we had, Driftwood actually backed up and flooded due to this pipe being separated, and also have numbers on that. And I'm also working with EDs to get me numbers so I can compare the repair on that. Here at the Public Works, we are still working on our fencing. We just finished up the welding and the sensor repair. That's almost, since we rebuilt that fence, the rolling gate, that's almost like a $13,000 repair or replacement that we would have needed. I think we did it for a couple $100. So that is almost up and operational. I also worked on the additional estimates for the Department of Public Works, the condensation remediation. I got those numbers back. They were significantly higher than Trident's numbers. So I know we're good there. Also had the City Hall elevator repair in the shaft. So we were in compliance with SCLLR. We had a hole in the top of the ceiling that wasn't up to fire code. So we had that repaired. Some miscellaneous plumbing repairs at Front Beach restrooms. Also at Front Beach restrooms, I've had the attendant while we've had the slow season. He's been power washing and painting the restrooms. That's almost complete. Here also at Public Works, anytime we try to go through the building for safety reasons, and we replaced some electrical outlets that were broken, and we're working with the safety team, which I'm on, to kind of correct some of these problems here. Let's see. We did pothole filling on Intercoastal, Core Waterway Sidewalk, City Hall, Public Works Building also. We had to replace a stolen turtle statue up at Front Beach, which is back in a place where hopefully they can't steal it.
What's the world coming to, Robert? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, little statue. SCDOT was on the island doing some pothole repairs. We've got the landscaping that was removed and installed at the public safety building and is looking really good. I authorized some additional tree pruning around the whole building because that was kind of during construction, got out of control. We removed a wall that was leaning on Forest Trail and Cross Lane, a brick wall. And just as far as meetings, we've established a safety team with police and fire and just working on that. And I think that is about it.
Yeah, I would like to insert one thing that I've been working on with the Seagrove condominium complex. So my plan is to January 1 have no single family garbage cans in those enclosures, and we're going to the commercial dumpster in there. I had called and talked to Ravenel way back and told them that that's the plan. Carolina Waste has been on site. They've established a location. So now I've got to coordinate with the property management company and Carolina Waste on where that dumpster is going to be located and if they're going to build an enclosure or is it just going to be an open box. But that's moving forward for January 1.
That's great, Donnie. Thank you. We'll start ticking those off, hopefully. That's fantastic. What was initial reaction, Donnie, from the management company or the HOA?
There was no negative reaction because in that call or that conversation, the enclosure number 9 historically has been a disaster. And so I've had to continually call them to let them know you need to get over there, get someone over there to clean up where the guests have just thrown bags of garbage open and not putting them in the containers.
Yeah.
So I think it's in the global view would help the management company. It would also help the guests within that complex because it gets unsightly when they open that door and it's just not a pleasant looking thing.
Yeah, I agree. That's great, Donnie. Thank you for following up on that. Very much appreciate it. And what's Robert or Donnie, either one, I know you had another bid on the condensation issue in the building there. What's the timing? Because it looks like Trident, I mean, they may be getting ready to pull out from the public safety building. Are they getting ready to start that construction or what's the timing?
So Douglas, let Robert, I know in our last conversation, will be within 2 weeks, and that was last week. So we're gonna Friday, get this place ready for construction next week, and we'll be in Desiree's office for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Nice. She'll get to see what really happens, Donnie, won't she?
She knows.
I know she knows. She knows everything. That's great. Couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Robert, Donnie, thank you guys as usual for all the
Appreciate it.
work. A lot of variety and a lot of progress. Yeah, Robert, I don't know that it's rained since you've done the work around the Methodist church, has it? That's what happens.
Yeah.
We always do this drainage work and then the rain goes away for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, Rusty, any questions? You good?
One quick question on the plumbing repairs for the front beach restrooms. Is that sort of a chronic problem, Robert? Is that something you have to constantly attend to, or was it just kind of a one-off situation?
Yeah, actually, I was kind of surprised this year. We really didn't have the plumber down much at all. This was just a stuck valve on one of the sinks, and then a clog that was a stubborn clog. Most of the time, the attending can get it done. So yeah, I was really surprised overall this whole season that the public restrooms have not been an issue, which I thought our plumbing would be the biggest issue. And I'd say, I think I had Butch Plumbing out the beginning of the season and then just about 2 weeks ago. So surprising.
Okay. How's the water fountain dispenser operating these days? Is it doing okay? The one that we installed, last year?
Yes, the bottle filler's working perfect. During COVID, we taped off with a plastic bag on the actual water fountain part so people couldn't lean over and drink, but they were able to fill their bottles.
Okay. That's it.
All right, great, thank you. Moving to old business, an update on phase 3 drainage and small internal projects and the Waterway Boulevard path elevation. We've got folks from Thomas and Hutton. Rick, thank you guys for your patience and joining us today. Desiree or Douglas, any background before we turn it over to these folks?
Yeah, I'll before they share with us some updates on those projects. You all know that we've been working on those 3 different projects, which are, obviously tied together. We have the small drainage projects that are located around the basin of the outfall project. Also, the 3 major outfall improvement projects, 30th, 36th, and 41st Avenue. We've been having some permitting and some permitting challenges that I want us to discuss that have delayed somewhat our original schedule for completion and for completion of the project per se. And also we have some new information about, going back to the small but high impact drainage projects, we just opened bids last week. So we're going to share that information with you all and get some guidance on where we are and what our next step should be, because even the lowest bid came in a little bit higher than the $500,000 that the city has budgeted for the construction of this work. So we'll be talking about that, and also talking about the work that's been produced by Thomas and Hutton so far on the Waterway Boulevard elevation project. And as you all recall, that some funds were added to the total budget of the phase 3 drainage to include this component, if it became feasible, both economically and from an engineering perspective. So Douglas, is there anything else that we should mention before we turn it over to Rick and Hillary?
No, I think we'll kind of get there as we go through these projects. The staff and Thomas and Hutton's been working, and we just felt like it was, for all of these various parts, it would be good to just kind of get you up to speed on all of them, and talk about each one has its own kind of pinch points. So maybe we can get to those as we go through each one.
Great.
So we start with the small internal projects?
Well, if you don't mind, Douglas and I talked a little bit yesterday, and I think we talked kind of order of complexity, and we kind of wanted to do the pathway first,
Okay,
then the internal, then the outfalls, because that's kind of how complex things will get as we move forward through this. So I'm
Sounds
gonna share my screen now, if that's okay. So we have some things to talk about. So can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, Rick, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So this is an exhibit we've produced. So we've been studying. So this is starting with the Waterway Boulevard path, raising or tide flood control, or however you want to title it. But this is an exhibit of the part of the island that is Waterway Boulevard. This is 21st here, and this is 41st here. So, Waterway Boulevard is back here. So this is an exhibit of, so we looked at various scenarios of what could be feasible for the level of protection to provide. So we looked at, levels as, sea level rise, and we get higher and higher tides, what would be feasible to do for this. So we kind of come up with this, what we're calling this a 6-foot protection level, which on the Charleston gauge is like 9.1. So like when we talk about like we having some super high tides, they talk about an 8.0 tide. This is like a foot above the 8.0 tide, which causes significant flooding in downtown Charleston and probably several places on the island. So this is a representation of potential inundation of tide waters up to that 6-foot elevation. So this is areas that could, there's certain things, there's restrictions, of course, that kind of limit the water getting back up in here. The tide's not up, for a significant time. It comes up and then goes down. But still, these are areas that have the potential to be inundated with this 6.0 tide. So you can see it's fairly, significant in the 41st. And then, the forest trails kind of this low, of course, the island is a series of sand dune ridges. So you can see one ridge here, and this is a low spot between them. We've got the drainage components on that. So with the plan that we've kind of come up with, this would be what we would predict could happen. So, with the project implemented, we would be able to eliminate the tidal flow into this part of the island. So the red and yellow, so zooming in some just to give you guys a perspective, this is the path, and we analyzed the elevations along the path that would need to be improved to get to this 6.0 protection level. So, short, 2 blocks, 21st, a little half block section near 23rd. Then there's a long run that is, high enough already, so we don't have to really do anything to the path. And then when we get down towards 31st, there's a section, a couple of small sections. We did in some areas of the golf course, which, this may require some coordination with the golf course. We did, quote unquote, tie into the golf course elevation. If the golf course has got some, mounds and features or whatever that we would use as part of the protection. And then here's a section at the what we call the forest trails outfall. And then going over towards 41st, there's some sections along the golf course. And, one of the big things we're trying to do is to get this area, keep this intersection dry, if you will. And the fire station is right here. There is a kind of a low spot here in this middle that we might have to look at doing something that's, slightly outside of the pathway, area. And we would have to look at, I mean, and we're talking, generally inches, so 12 inches, maybe 18 inches, something like that to, it could be a speed bump or walkway or something. So where we're at, and then one other graphic, and then we've also, so this also relies upon the outfall project. So, the outfalls are going to provide that level of protection to not allow tides to penetrate at the drainage outfall system. So, 41st, Forest Trails, and 30th. And so, that this plan is relying that those outfall projects are in place. And then we've identified some, mainly on this, this end, some of the outfalls that would need to be addressed with some type of tide control to keep tide from penetrating in the drainage system. So that would be some things that we got to figure out, and where we're at is that we kind of got the concept, we've got the level of protection, and now we need to work on some details of exactly what this is going to look like, exactly what this is going to look like, and then the cost to do that. So we need to do some conceptual, like landscape planning to come up with what this would look like, and then cost that out to come up with a project cost. And then just one other exhibit, and this is an exhibit of what we just ran, affected buildings, what buildings could be affected by the inundated area, that are removed from the inundated area by the project, and then affected road segments. And then there's this white is affected parcels. So you could see it's a fairly significant amount of potentially affected infrastructure that is, positively affected by the project. So, homes along here, road segments, and we've got a tabulation of that we provided to Doug, and we can forward to the committee if it wasn't already. But that's where we're at on the pathway project work. And so I guess if there's any questions before we go forward, or if there's anything else that anybody needs to know about.
Yeah, Douglas, were you gonna chime in?
Yeah, just a quick comment on this project. So what we really were hoping to kind of get from the committee was just a sense as to whether or not you feel like that proposed level of protection is the correct one to analyze at this point. The way our agreement is with Thomas and Hutton is they have agreed to basically, once we've kind of gotten a warm fuzzy feeling about the correct level of protection, they then will go through and do a pretty, I won't say detailed plan and cost estimate, but we kind of have a one shot opportunity at them doing that exercise. So before the staff said, yes, we think 6 is correct, and all of this information comes back to you at 6. And then the comment is, well, why didn't you do 7? Why didn't you do 5? So it's really kind of threading the needle of complexity and cost versus protection that I think, and honestly, from my standpoint, I was hoping that maybe we could get it to 7. And Rick has convinced me that once you get above 6, things just really start to spill over all over the place. And it pretty quickly becomes, in their mind and their analysis shows that it's really it gets cost prohibitive at that point. So I think that the staff and Thomas and Hutton feels pretty good about 6 being the sweet spot of effectiveness and affordability. But we just wanted to bounce that off of this group, so we're not kind of working in a vacuum on that point before they go forward, do the cost analysis and paint the picture more completely for everybody.
Interesting data. I mean, Douglas, that's the $1 million question always, which turns into a $10 million question at some point, is you at what level makes sense? If you're going to spend the money, at what level does it make sense to do it? And I know we've had conversations in planning commission days and with some residents, that have some experience in this area. And it's hard to pick the right number. I mean, to your conversation, it's hard to pick, to balance the economics to the protection. So, I mean,
I would also just add that in my mind, looking at this map and seeing, when we see those top little blocks with a red blurb in it, every one of those is a drainage project.
Yeah.
What really started the conversation was just repaving, resurfacing the path. So what I would envision is this would probably be some kind of phased operation where we, where we do the path and we elevate the path, knowing that we're not going to get 100% of that work done that same year. But then, we would have a little bit of a roadmap as to how to just systematically go down the back of those outfalls and add there. I think they're almost all tidal gates at the end of those outlets. So, I think that really it will be a big project initially when they get the cost estimate. But I think that from my standpoint, we would probably look at just doing the path portion of it this year or in the near future with the roadmap of adding those gates and doing those other smaller projects as we can.
Yeah, it would at least be a broader strategy, Douglas, than just the path or just these 3 outfalls right now. So I hear you. Yeah. Rusty, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, a comment here more than anything. I mean, it looks like from what I see right here that the positive effect is going to be very, very significant for a lot of homes and a lot of the streets, a lot of areas. So that looks good to me. Even, I mean, we all know we probably can't solve every problem that's out there unless we're willing to spend a lot more money, to the point of going 7 versus 6. But I mean, this looks like this would make a huge difference right here.
Yeah, and Rick, let me make sure I understand you right. So is this picture of protection that assumes the 3 outfalls and the waterway path, not all the other red projects, to Douglas's comment? Did I hear you right?
Well, no, it's all the, oh shoot, I think it is. These are all like this red section of path, this is a part of the path that needs to be like elevated.
Right.
And then these red boxes are, projects that have to be done to the drainage system. So like this drainage system, all these 4 or 5 drainage, 6, in this section will all need to be like retrofitted with some type of tide control, because the water would be able to penetrate up the pipes and then in behind our line of defense, if you will. So
right.
There's
so
going to be
this pictorial does not assume those proposed tide control projects are done. I guess that's where I'm.
No, it does. Those are when we do our cost estimate, we're going to cost in a cost to do these projects because it's part of the protection of this area, this inundated area that we are targeting to protect. So these drainage retrofits with tide control, we kind of like the inserted check valves, and those, there'd be a cost to insert those check valves on all these systems. That would have to be part of the, I know we're just talking about raising the path, but for this to come to fruition, we would need to also have all these in place. So we were going to cost those also.
Yeah, you don't get that level of protection until all of those projects are done.
Yeah, and that's a better way to say that, I guess,
Yeah.
Douglas. And so this pictorial here is everything's done, everything's built, everything's installed, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And
So
I
we-
guess, go ahead.
So we do the title control projects before we actually do the path. Is that what we're saying?
I mean, it could be done in any order.
Yeah.
Those are probably going to be more impactful, at least on this end of the island,
Uh-huh.
the end of the project area. Those tide controls are going to be more impactful in the long run than the path raising.
The path, yeah. And Douglas, hearkening back to a planning commission conversation a couple of years ago, I mean, I guess, we knew that we could only attack these 3 outfalls to start with from a financial or, how much could the residents' stomach standpoint at one time. But we eventually knew those other outfalls were going to need work, if I remember our conversations right.
That's correct. Yep, that is correct. I do think on the, kind of the bright side of looking down at all of these projects, I think each of those projects is there's a lot of red marks there, but in my mind anyway, and we won't know until Thomas and Hutton does the analysis, but I'm thinking that those tide gates should not be, extraordinarily expensive.
Right.
But, I would hope that we could kind of maybe do 3 or 4 at a time each year, something like that, where we could get those. We might not do it all at once and have instant protection, but that over time, we would just chip away at it, do a few as we could, and get it in, pretty quick order, get that entire project completed.
Yeah, well, and like I say, Douglas, it's just, and Rick, it's a great roadmap to where we need to get to, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Rusty, do you have another comment or question? Sorry.
Just wondering where we are, status on the drainage that goes across the golf course on hole number 8, I guess it is. Any update on that, Douglas?
That's gonna
That'll
be,
be,
yeah, Rick is gonna go through all three projects. So that'll be the third one we'll talk.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
So on this one, do you all is there consensus to continue Thomas and Hutton down the road of analyzing at the elevation of 6, I guess is the root of the question on this one?
well, and I guess Douglas, again, thinking about some of the conversations with residents and others, I mean, it sounds like from Rick, y'all's viewpoint, 6 is the right number. Otherwise, your economics start falling apart.
Yeah, I truthfully, looking past 6, it almost gets unfeasible in a way, and particularly down towards 41st.
Yeah.
You really run into significant problems of just being able to, I mean, there would be all kinds of issues with doing some type of structure or whatever on private property and things like that. And I think it just gets beyond what you could do.
Yeah. Desiree?
Yeah, Rick, could you speak a little bit about, let's say money's no object, there's no complication with going to 7. What is really that delta, that difference between in protection level from 6 to 7? Because I know we talked about it at staff level, and it seemed, after hearing you speak to that, it seemed logical, not only from an economic perspective, but also from an engineering, to go to 6. What more would we get?
Yeah,
Even-
I mean, and we did a fairly significant amount of work looking at tide elevations and things like that, and historic tide elevations, and I'll just give you a couple if I could find them. I don't think I'm gonna be able to put my fingers on them real quick, but what we kind of predicted, this is like would be a 25-year level of protection, with hurricanes and other conditions, but in general, we're going to get a protection against like recurrent king tides, that we have every year now, and and are just getting worse and worse and worse. This would provide that protection for those. Now, there's of course, we get a tropical storm passing by. It's going to be, we're going to get a tide that's higher, and it's going to swamp this and all that. So, we believe this is like a 25-year level of protection, which is a decent level of protection. It's what we're designing the drainage systems to. So and that's this is the risk. So the risk of this getting overtopped or exceeded in any given year is, and I got to do my math, is 4%. So which right now it's probably 100%. Right now we're 100%. This area is being flooded every year. We're going to go down to a 4% chance of that, and then to go to like to the 7, you're only going to like a 1% chance. So that delta is, you're really, for all the costs that you're going to get, you really don't move, like I call move the needle much more.
Yeah.
This moves that needle pretty darn far, and then to go to that next level, that cost to move that needle just to go to 7 is not really, in my opinion, worth it.
Yeah, you're not picking up a lot more protection for sure.
Like, I guess there's consensus or at least an agreement that, to go with the recommendation from Thomas and Hutton with going to 6. And I think that, this meeting could serve as a validation of what we were thinking earlier in our conversations with Rick and Hillary, so that they move forward with that sort of more detailed cost benefit analysis with this proposed 6 feet elevation.
Good morning.
And hey, Rick, can you just say one more time, when you say a 6 foot protection, tell me what that means again, because
Good morning, Public Works.
It's not a 6 foot tide, but
No. So 6 foot is the elevation in the current datum that we engineers use and design to. That's the NAVD 88 datum, which is generally equivalent to a 9.1 tide gauge height. So which the Charleston tide gauge is reported in mean lower low water. That's their datum. So fishermen talk about 8.0 tides and stuff like that. So when you have an 8.0 tide, you've got significant. I mean, you would definitely have water, on this intersection.
Yeah.
And so we're going a foot above that. So in an 8.0 tide, you got lots of flooding in downtown Charleston. They're closing roads and things like that. So that is the conversion there.
yeah, thank you. And that was more for me and anybody else that had the question.
Right.
I'm afraid when you say, not afraid, but when we say we're covering for 6 foot protection, somebody's immediate response is going to be, well, that doesn't even make sense to spend money, but it's not
Right.
equating.
Well, we could change it to the 9.1 protection plan if you want.
Well, we probably ought to consider doing that, or at least make sure that as we present this, and it's very clear that 6.0 means 9.1.
Yeah. Rick, that would throw you engineer guys all out of whack if we did something.
Well, we're used to having multiple datums and things like that. So
Got it.
it does get confusing, and it does lead potential for error. So we try to keep everything in one datum.
Well, and it's not even error as much as it is incorrect assumptions on people's part that may not be steeped in the conversation.
Right.
But
Well, and it also means, people's houses, there's BFEs and stuff, for the island, and BFEs are reported in the 88 datum. So, people, base flood elevation when you have a hurricane surge, and then people elevations of their finished floor, they're probably familiar with those, I would hope. And those numbers are in the 88 datum. So this is a similar, datum.
yeah, got it. So this is great information. I think, Rusty, I mean, to me, it makes total sense where we are and what you guys have proposed here. So I would suggest moving forward, Rusty, unless you think differently.
No, I agree with you, Philip.
Yeah, Douglas, Desiree, Rick, this is really good information. Thank
So
you.
just to let you guys know what we plan to do, and Douglas, just hopefully, so we're going to look at these locations. And so you could see here, this is a location of the pathway where we've got driveways and things. So we would have to look at from a landscape, can can we adjust the driveway some to come up and then go back down into these properties and things. So, and then, look at each one of these sections, come up with a recommended, like, some of them might, like, at the intersection, this might be a raised crosswalk or something like that. So, at each one of these, red locations, we're going to come up with a plan. We got the landscape architecture guys ready to go. The plan, they're going to look at it and say, oh, well, this is what you should do. Looking at several, the path, you can't be 18 inches off the ground without a handrail and things like that. So they got to look at all those things. And then once they kind of sketch that up, then we'll cost it out. Well, we'll probably bring that to staff first. And then after that, we'd cost it out. But we look at kind of what we want to do at each location, and then run it by the city, and then come up with that cost. And then that kind of gives you the cost, and then you kind of see the benefits, which is this. So you could kind of look at that. So that's just for your information.
Okay. Well, at least there's a decent amount of yellow, Rick. It's not all flaming red on the path.
Yeah, we were able, again, and then there would have to be a discussion again, and this is something that we're going to bring up a little bit later. A lot of these projects are really getting tied into the golf course.
Yeah.
So we need to really engage them as a partner in these projects.
Yeah, Rick, we're going to nominate you for that conversation. Okay. This will be like
I will tell you, I did go to a online thing by the ULI, Urban Land Institute, and Lowe Company made a presentation about doing public-private partnership projects. So they were very, say, hey, we like doing these public-private partnership projects. So these are all public-private partnership projects, PPP projects. So I think we try to use his own words, not against them, but just say, hey, this we all learn this together, and we need to solve these problems.
Well, I think they're doing that downtown at their other new hotel.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a little background on that.
Gotcha.
And we'll include these drawings and a link to this meeting on our phase 3 drainage project update page.
Perfect.
So can can easily look at these maps and hear the explanation from Thomas and Hutton on the project.
Great. Thank you, Desiree. Yeah, Douglas, Rick, this is really, really good work here. Thank you.
All right. So
All right, now that was the simple one.
I know that's the problem. I'm doing a calculation in my head as we go, Douglas.
Yeah, buckle up.
So I guess we're ready to move on. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
going to talk about the phase 3 drainage project, the phase 3 internal drainage project. So as hopefully the committee knows, we were tasked by staff to come up with a series of internal projects, kind of based upon our study of relatively low cost, high impact projects. We don't like the word low hanging fruit, so that's the term that we came up with. So, and these are the projects we identified, and a little bit in our defense of the costing is what we didn't want to do is come up short on the cost. So we picked projects that we thought could be done for the 500,000, but we also picked projects that we thought might push us over the top because we could always drop one of the projects. So we got all the costs are all individual, and we made it clear in the bid that it would be the city's choice of what projects to implement, one or all 7 of them. So these were the projects. there's several on 41st, and then several internal to the Forest Trails neighborhood, and then one over here on 32nd. And these were all designed, construction plans developed. So, we got the construction plans, and these are just some of the drawings that we produced for it. Each one has like an erosion control plan, a demolition plan, a drainage, new, proposed infrastructure plan. And then, with all these projects, there's usually a utility relocation issue. So there's usually a water, sewer, power, gas, whatever, there that needs to be adjusted or relocated so we could do the drainage to the size that we want to. So those were all coordinated. We bid it. We had 3 bids, Gulfstream, Edie's, and Green Wave. The summary of the bids are, we've analyzed the bids, looked at them. So Gulfstream was, the apparent low bidder at $612,000. Green Wave was second at $784,000, and Edie's was remarkably high at $1 million. And we've got really good experience working with Gulfstream on drainage improvement projects. So we've looked at their bid. We had some concerns about some certain things in their bid, and we have had discussions with them and some coordination, and it had to do with some utility relocations. We had some discussions with them and some discussions with Isle of Palm Water and Sewer Commission, and everything is checked out. So we are prepared to issue a letter of recommendation, based upon these bids, as there's the lowest bidder. They meet, their qualifications are good, and they meet all the requirements of the contract. So we're ready to issue a letter of recommendation to award it to Gulfstream. And I guess Douglas and Desiree, the only question would be, it's $112,000 above the budget. Is there a desire on the city's part to take advantage of this bid and fund it to that level, or stick with the $500,000 budget? And like what we said is, we could remove a project to get it into either under 5 or closer to 5.
Rick, could you just describe, if the committee were to want to stick with the $500,000 budget, would you describe what project would be dropped, how it would be picked up, and what the kind of cost differential would be from the 612?
Well, one of the ones that is causing us the most concern, or that is probably the most challenging, and we were thinking that we would drop this 41st at Forest Trails. This is the one that we kind of had a larger question on it to Gulfstream, and it's worked out, and they will build this project for this amount. But if we took out this 90,000, it goes to 521,000. So that, and now and then that project could be added into the outfall project when we get to the outfall project. Now it's going to be a little bit, for a time, there's going to be, you're going to have like a big pipe, coming downstream. You're going to have big pipe, small pipe, big pipe, small pipe. But then when we do the outfall project, you have big pipe, really big pipe. So, so that's, it could be a year or so of that. So that's the one we would think. Now, of course, you could look at any of these, and if you wanted to get, if we wanted the people on 32nd, we could take out the 116,000 one, and that gets us to 495. So that gets us totally under the budget. And so that 32nd Avenue drainage improvement project could be eliminated and get us right where we need to be.
Go ahead,
And that's-
Desiree.
Yes, I wanted to make you all aware that we also have another potential source of funding for this. The NPDES Stormwater Fund that Charleston County manages on behalf of the city. You all may recall that a year or two ago, City Council voted to increase that fee from 48 to 72, which made us consistent with our other neighboring municipalities. Our current fund balance there is around 475,000. We always like to maintain a balance of 25,000, not depleted completely. And we expect for that fund to grow by about $200,000 to $20,000 every year. We would have to share with them these projects that, I think, and Douglas, you and Dunny handle our NPDES project on behalf of the city with Chris Wanamaker. But we don't have any reason to believe that they would not approve any of these projects that we can sort of pick up so that, they could be funded, maybe funded through with those monies. Another thing to think about is the $500,000 that we have in lieu of what we're seeing now doesn't include any contingencies, which we typically like to include when we go to, when we do projects, to include a 10 to 15% contingency. So just keeping that in mind with the monies that we have available and sort of the options we have moving forward.
And I guess Douglas or Rick, Douglas, probably more a question for you. The first project we just looked at, now this one is focused on kind of the middle of the island, which I am making a big leap. That's where our issues are. And that's why we don't have any projects sitting kind of outside this basin. We're kind of trying to hit our problem areas. And again, just saying that for the broader public to hear. It's not like we're trying to fix just one section of the island, but these are our problem hotspots continually.
That's correct.
Yeah, Rick, your comment about, if you took out an example, if you took out the 41st and Forest Trail piece and you had big pipe, little pipe, big, that doesn't feel very good to me. And I think we'd be in for some, residents would be, why are we spending the money like this? And why would we not do a project in total personally? All this just fits.
Well,
Jigsaw puzzle. Yeah.
But just remember though, these all on 41st are contributing to the 41st outfall project, which again, is got some lead time to get in place. So these all would still be upstream of a smaller pipe. So
With you.
So there's a thing there, but again, it doesn't necessarily scare me to do these out of place, just as long as the city has got the will to follow through with everything, including the outfall project.
Rick, that's spoken from experience of dealing with cities, right?
Well, I will never hear the end of it if we put these big pipes out there and then it all contributes to a 36-inch pipe, and hey, I'd never hear the end of it from other engineers. So
I have one question, Philip.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chair. Douglas, do you see any concern or issue with pursuing some funding from NPDES? And that was the whole purpose that council increased that fee, so that we have more monies available to address drainage projects and drainage needs as they we become aware of them.
No, I wouldn't foresee a problem, and I've actually had a casual conversation with Chris. There's always the NPDES money is that the NPDES focus is really on water quality, cleanliness of the water. So they will, they basically prioritize projects that deal with water quality versus water quantity, which is what we're dealing with. But having said that, it is still our money. So it's not like we're applying for a grant. That's a competitive situation. It is the city's money. They just advise us as to whether or not they feel really good about if the EPA were to come and analyze what we're using that NPDES funding for, would it be appropriate? But I think that they've indicated to us that, yes, this is certainly a drainage project. It is water. It's related to your drainage, and I don't think that they would see any problem with this. But we would certainly, double check that before we spent that money on it. But I feel very strong that they would be okay with it.
And so Desiree, are you suggesting, the budget impact of the city could stay at 500? The remainder could be funded through this other source?
Yes, I'm thinking about, and if we do that, we still have no money for contingency. So what I'm thinking is maybe take one or two projects to fund through NPDES so that our 500,000 would have some wiggle room for contingencies.
Yeah. With you. Rusty, questions, comments from your view?
No, I tend to agree with Desiree. If we're looking at getting a couple of projects funded that way, then that makes sense. And what would we add for contingencies? Would that be 10 to 15%?
Yeah, 50,000 or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
50 to 60.
50 to 70.
Yeah, somewhere.
Well, 15% of 612 is 91,000.
Yeah.
92,000 or so to, contingencies when it's underground, it's just always a good idea to have a healthy contingency, because you just never know what you might run into. And we certainly have had that experience of needing contingencies when it's underground work.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I guess, when I look at these improvements here, Philip, to your point earlier, all of these need to be done. These are all areas that need to be addressed, and I wouldn't want to drop any of them if we can help it.
So I guess, Rick, again, this is such a jigsaw puzzle of knowing where to spend your money and the timing of projects. Do we need to go ahead to the next one and get the full picture and then figure out what we want to do?
Well, the next one is the next item on our thing is the outfalls, and they're pretty independent of this. All of these need the outfalls to work to 100%. Now they're going to do some good, but they're not going to do their design, full potential until the outfall projects are in.
Right.
But they are addressing, what we believe, through our analysis are chronic, localized kind of drainage and flooding problems. The 41st Avenue one, that's just a main canal improvement, but all the other ones are more like localized, and those will probably be see an impact prior to the outfalls being in more than the 41st would. The 41st are, they're great and they're setting the system up for success down the line, but the other ones, I definitely would, if something had to go, I would definitely push back on like a 41st Avenue project or something, if it was me.
So Philip, on the bigger project, we won't be asking you for any, action on those. It really is just an update of where we are, kind of where the pinch points are. We've talked, Desiree and I've kind of been talking in general terms about the issues there, and none of them are insurmountable, but it's time and effort and just answering questions more on that one. So that will really just be an update. And on this one, again, I think we're just looking for direction as to whether or not you would prefer you know, staying at 500,000 or going at the full project at this point.
Yeah, my preference would be to go for the full project and get the additional funding source personally. Rusty, I don't know where your head is.
No, I agree with you, Philip.
I mean, Desiree, well, I guess Desiree or Douglas, what's y'all's thought?
I would tend to, I agree with that approach. My thought about, for next steps is us having a more in-depth conversation with Chris and the county and our NPDES manager there. At staff level, identify what projects could be funded and applied for but done through the NPDES fund, and then kind of, and calculate how much money we have, how our contingencies are looking, so that we can ensure that we can fund the whole project with that combined approach. And, we can have a recommendation before, for Ways and Means, once we have those questions answered. But I think that we should be in good shape to go about it that way.
Yeah, and Desiree, oh, go ahead, Douglas, sorry.
Yeah, I would just add that, in my personal feeling is that these projects, if you delay them, they never seem to go down in cost, so I feel good about Gulfstream. I feel good about how competitive their bid was. So I would feel good about proceeding. Just, that alone, the notion that if you do it a year and a half from now, I don't think any of those prices will have gone down. And I think ultimately you would have potentially, seen an increase in pricing. So from that standpoint, I feel good about proceeding with all of them.
Yeah. And I get two questions real quick. And I guess, Desiree, this bucket of money that the county holds for us, is it like the Dominion bucket? Does a fifth fall off at a certain time? They just continue to accumulate for us?
Mm-hmm. No, it's collected through, property tax payments, and they hold it, and council would have to approve it by, via motion, that we want to use those funds for, X or whatever, or the particular project, and then we would request that through them, and they would give us money. And I don't know if I misspoke earlier, but we try to maintain 25% of the fund balance, not 25,000. If I said 25,000, forgive me, but we'd like to keep, which would be around 100,000.
But it's not like Dominion where if you don't use it, you lose some of it.
No.
Okay. And then Rick, I guess from just a timing standpoint, so we've got the bids, let's say we nail down the funding. I mean, can all this happen in our fiscal year, or is how long would this?
Well, with the bids being in there, the contractors, I think, they have, and I don't know the exact timing, but they said, hey, my bid is good for X amount of time. So, there's a schedule or we have to get this figured out so we could get it, awarded within the time that it is still valid. Now, I think, Gulfstream, again, we have a very good working relationship with them. I think, they'd work with us on several things, but, there's more of a timing to get it done. I think we have, what was the schedule, that number of days?
120 days.
120 days. So it's a 4-month schedule. So,
end of April.
So, as soon as, and then, there's some spin up on their part, but, I think we could get it done in the first couple months of the year, 3 to 4 months of the year.
Rick, remind me, when we were putting the RFP together, we did indicate to the prospective bidders that we were hoping, our schedule was getting it approved by November of this year, and we could issue a notice to proceed by the first of the year. So, the work is done before, hopefully finished before April.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So finish before the season got started, which would be good.
So we would need, again, there's a risk if you guys proceed without working it out with the county on that additional funding, and then them dragging their heels on it. But we need to move forward with the award, the award, the selection at fairly quickly. And I don't know, like Desiree or Doug, is that like that coordination with the county, is that a lengthy process or does that just involve a phone call or two?
Could be a phone call or two.
Okay.
Phone call or two to verify, and then, a letter and a.
Yeah,
Actually-
yeah, got it.
So that would be a pretty quick turnaround there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Desiree, do we need to take any action on this, or what's your expectation?
Well, my only concern is that on the agenda, we just have updates and not consideration. So I guess the committee can amend the agenda to include consideration and make a recommendation to Ways and Means, or we can just have, bring it, include it at the Ways and Means meeting for the 17th and
Yeah.
have, there's no,
Yeah,
downside
I would
with-
prefer that. Yeah, let's do the latter, Rusty, if you're okay with that. I think we just,
Yes,
Bring it.
I'm good. I'm good with that. The 17th.
yeah.
Okay.
I would
Good
say,
work.
are we kind of collectively hearing that the preference would be the whole project at this point? I think is what I'm,
Yes, I think so, Douglas.
okay.
Yep. Same here.
Great, I think we're ready for the outfall fund project.
You guys
All
are
right.
wearing me out today.
So I'm bringing up, so we are, we have the design pretty much complete. We've been working on some of the like issues that come along and all the various issues that we have to deal with on these types of projects. And so I'm going to talk about, I guess the first one, Douglas, and maybe let's talk about the easements first, which are kind of, in my mind, are a little bit more straightforward. And then we'll talk about permitting and our permitting strategy, if that's okay. Douglas?
Yes, that sounds good. On this one, I think that if we focused on 31st, you kind of capture all of the issues, pretty much all of the issues in that one, and then the others have kind of the same issues at a less degree. So we
Right.
kind of use that as the example. I think that would be helpful.
Right. Okay. Well, so the two big, not issues, but just our challenges, and they're not outside of our scope or outside of extraordinary. They are taking a little bit longer and a little bit more complications. But so at 31st, this is an exhibit. This is actually, I'm sorry, Doug, it's 30th. So make sure we get the outfall 30th. And this is Waterway Boulevard. This is the pathway. This is the two houses that the ditch goes between right now. This is a golf cart path. So right now there's this peach color. This is an existing easement that is all across the golf course property that begins there. And then as you move across, so it goes to this bottom sheet, as you move across the golf course, we got this existing easement. So this is the fairway right here of the golf course. So, and then after you kind of get on the other side of the fairway, the existing ditch kind of moves outside of the existing easement. So it kind of, so this is sheets of continuation up here. It drifts over here. Here's the second outfall. And then it kind of gets over to the Intercoastal Waterway. So that peach, so it was like, whenever the beach company was out there or whatever, they platted a 20-foot easement, 30-foot easement just from Waterway Boulevard out to the Intercoastal, straight shot. They might have dug a ditch, and it might have been in there at one time, but it's not in there right now. So we've designed our project and then, looked at what we need to make that project work. Now, we're not really doing any improvements downstream of the second golf cart bridge. So our thought is we should work with the golf course to adjust the easement in this section to cover the drainage. So what we would do is we would propose abandoning a section of the easement, which was this hatched area up here, and then getting additional easement down here, which is blue. And that's in the section generally from the, from the intercoastal up to the first golf court bridge as you come in. And then in between the first and second golf cart bridge is we need this section over here for what we believe is, we're kind of cleaning this section of the ditch out and then providing a access point, an access and a maintenance point that the city would have to basically be able to access this without having to go across the golf course in a different area. And then I'll bring up the project to kind of explain that. So we have identified these new easements that we want to get, and then this old easement that we want to, abandon, give back. And then there's a net easement that is going to be required. So that's kind of like the easement part of this. And then going to the design part. So here's 30th Waterway Boulevard. This is the project. So what we're doing is we're tying in all this drainage that's coming down 30th. There's like two systems that come down. There's some drainage from the north, or the Page North. And then, we're improving this section of the system to get larger capacity. This would be a box culvert. And then we're building our structure that is going to house our check valves. And then we've gone from a box culvert section to a triple pipe section, which are triple 48s. And our original thought was to end this pipe here and then just have the ditch across the fairway. So let me go back to that section. So here's the golf cart bridge closest to Waterway Boulevard. And then we originally proposed an open channel here. The feedback we got from the golf courses, like they really didn't want a larger open channel on the golf course. So they asked, could you modify the project to do a pipe section? So we designed it for a pipe section. And you see this little kind of gray hatch. This is what we are envisioning as, so there would be a, direct access to this pipe section and this channel from 41st Waterway to go, this is all buried. So you drive over the top of it. And then, when there's no golf people here, you would drive across the golf course, and then you would have this access down the side of the channel. And it's not paved or rocked or anything. It would just probably be some type of like a reinforcing mat underneath grass. It'd still look like a fairway and stuff, but it would be reinforced with some type of geotextile or something to provide that strength, so you don't leave ruts and stuff like that. So one of the things we still have yet to do is cost out what's the delta for this project, for this change in the project. So we're working through that as part of that, and we're almost there. The rest of the project, from a design standpoint, is we just kind of clean the channel up a little bit, straighten it, clean it out, and then as you go out to the waterway, we're really not widening this. This is just just kind of, we're slightly widening it, but it's more just kind of cleaning it up and making it look good. We're really not proposing much work past the second golf cart bridge. And then here's the end of your access. And then you could see this dotted line. That is that new easement that we are proposing. So you could see how this this work and this channel would be inside of an easement, a dedicated easement. And then this section here would be in a dedicated easement that you would access. And then this section is the channels inside of an easement. So this gets everything kind of cleaned up, long-term, everything's where it should be instead of kind of off kilter a little bit. And then, so talking a little bit, so that's easement and design. And then now I'm going to talk, I guess, Doug, you want me to just jump into permitting, or do you want, stop here for questions real quick?
Yeah, I would just kind of paraphrase, I guess, that on that particular, and I think this is the most severe one, but on that particular crossing or outfall, really what Rick just walked through is it's an increase in cost above kind of what we've had in our mind. It's an increase potentially in mitigation complications with permitting, and an increase in a need for easement area from Wild Dunes. So it's, it all just goes to say that it's that one in particular has proven to be more challenging than I guess I initially had thought. And so we're trying to work through that. We haven't really had much follow-up with Wild Dunes since an initial couple of meetings. So that's kind of our next assignment, is to really go through with them and discuss these issues with them. But I just think we wanted to put you all on notice that outfall has challenges that are more than what I at least had originally anticipated. The rest are a little easier to deal with, and I think the permitting, Rick, if you want to, unless there are any questions about that one in particular or the others, we could go on to permitting.
Hey, Douglas, is some of the concerns with Wild Dunes how this project would affect the layout of that particular golf hole or the playability or whatever?
Yes, yeah. So if you see the ditch across there now, I would guess it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 feet from the top of the bank to the top of the bank, and it's fairly shallow. So it's got, this vegetation growing out of it. And what we what we would have gone to if we left it as a ditch would be something like 20 feet. If it was a much wider, deeper, it would be kind of mud at the bottom, and top of the bank to top of the bank, I think was in the vicinity of 12, 15 feet, 20 feet, something like that, Rick. So it's yes, that was really their concern, is that they went from kind of a small scale, yes, just a depression. And quite honestly, I think that's what's causing the problems. I mean, that is not enough and not deep enough and not big enough to allow the entire basin to get through it in any timely fashion. So that really is the choke point. And to really do it, I think the way it needs to be done just changes the look and feel of that section of the course too much for their liking, I think.
I've got a lot of golf balls in that ditch.
Imagine if it was 3 times the size.
I know.
Yeah. Douglas, I thought one of the conversations was, if you piped right here, they wanted to sod over the top of that ditch, if that's the path we went, right? That's an option.
So yes, that's the way Thomas and Hutton has it currently designed. But just, and I guess it's just putting you on notice that to do that jumps the cost and the mitigation and the easement. It kind of jumps everything up a bit. And well, I say a bit, I guess it's drainage money. It's significant. I don't know exactly, but it's a sizable increase to the project that we want it to be aware. And I think all of the, well, not all of the, we'll get into the permitting issues, but every percentage of an acre that you disturb has an offsetting mitigation complication or expense that Rick can get into now, I think. So
Right.
beyond just the cost of the physical pipes, you have this mitigation issue that we'll get in.
Right. So, yeah, correct. You know, even though you would call this a ditch, this is actually a critical area. That is, a critical area means a saltwater wetland. So this is a saltwater wetland, considered a jurisdictionally, you know, controlled saltwater wetland by the state, OCRM. And so any impact to this, whether we deepen it, widen it, fill it, you know, whatever, it requires some type of permit and some type of coordination with the state. And then what you do is kind of, you know, drives what like the mitigation is. So like if we widened it, they do, you know, and you actually create more critical area, but they you know, they realize you're going to, you know, destroy the vegetation that's there and all that. So there would have been an impact that we would have had to mitigate possibly, or at least do something for. But you know, piping it, you know, that's 100% loss of what they consider a natural resource. And so that has a cost. And they want you to offset that impact or that loss by creating some new natural resource, like a new critical area. And there's also some other means that you could do it. But so in the permitting strategy, and this one's probably not the best one to talk about the permitting strategy because this gets a little bit out of it, but what we've decided in talking with our sub-consultant on permitting is we're gonna, for these projects, we're gonna get 2 permits, and one is the pipe portion of the project. So we're gonna permit the pipe portion of the project. So you know, in theory and in practice, this project would work and would provide a good benefit for drainage if we didn't do this channel improvement down here. Now, it would kind of be what we call, there'd be a sump here, and the water would there'd always be a little bit of water sitting in this at low tide because this couldn't drain below like elevation 2. So I'm just kind of explaining a little bit, and then we're gonna permit the channel part because it's easier to kind of separate the issues. This is like, you know, total destruction of the resource. This is, you know, impact of the resource, but it's not total destruction. So we're kind of separating the 2 issues, So, and we've worked with the agencies already. We talked to both of them, you know, and there's the OCRM and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We talked to both of them, and they're on board with that. And we're to even the point that this part of the channel work could be accomplished under a permission,
Letter of permission.
which is a lot better and makes it a lot easier. But we still have this hurdle of permitting the total fill and total impact of this area.
And that is below the 0.1.
And this is below the 0.1 threshold that kicks you into another level of permit requirements. So we're doing it what's called a nationwide permit. And if you go above that 0.1, you got to go to a higher permit level, which is called an individual permit. So, but still, we got to get a critical area permit. That those are Army Corps permits or parallel Army Corps permits. The big hurdle is going to be OCRM critical area permitting, and they've already we sense a reluctance on this level of project, but all of this is within, I mean, we're doing it by the book. All of this is within regulation, just as long as we get the, we get the permit and we do the mitigation. It all meets, the regulations. I think this is from a long-term standpoint for the island and the golf course and all the residents, and this is the project that needs to be done. So that's where we are. Doug, do you have anything else to add on that?
Well, so first, I guess a question from me. So Rick, on this one, we're doing two. Are we doing two for each of the three outfalls for a total of 6 different applications? Or are we
No,
doing?
the 41st outfall doesn't need 2. I mean, that's going to be an individual permit no matter what. So,
Okay,
so that's just going to be one permit. That's all going at once. But 30th and Forest Trails are going in as 2 different permits.
so it'll be 5 different permits.
Yes, sir.
Two. And I guess the last thing, the mitigation is so a permit to me translates to time, first of all, and secondly, the expense of mitigation. And you can I think we can either just pay into a fund, which seems to be kind of a somewhat expensive proposition, or we can find an offsetting wetlands project. And I think, again, we need to circle back with Wild Dunes.
Yes.
But we hope that there's some opportunity for a partnership on a mitigation project somewhere out on their course,
Right.
hopefully in the vicinity of these projects while we
Right.
have.
And we gave you, I don't know if you've gone through that document that we distributed that has some ideas about that.
I have
from
not.
from Terracon. It's a kind of like a permit challenges and opportunities document. And one other thing that they did kind of identify, you could do something with oysters, reestablishing or establishing new oyster bed areas. So that's a path that we could look to go down, and that again is documented in that thing. So there's some options there.
So all of that to say, on this one, we're really just giving you an update. But we're just kind of working through, it's a little bit of a Rubik's Cube of cost, regulation, mitigation. So we're trying to, again, kind of thread the needle of the most cost-effective, agreeable, and bang for the buck on these. And I think, and Desiree, I know that you, the issue with timing, I think that we have slid a bit because of all of these complications on our initial scheduling. And that was really the reason that we wanted to kind of put this in front of you and just explain what all is going on and how many moving parts there are here. But are we kind of tentatively maybe we're beyond the fiscal year from starting?
For this one, for sure.
Yeah, we've even talked
For
about
this one, meaning this outfall, Rick?
This outfall, yes.
and we have kind of internally talked about even breaking this in to multiple mini projects if we really do get a sense that one of these more complex ones is going to hold up all of the rest of the progress. We may come to you with a strategy of carving one of the projects out just so we can get started on the rest. So we just have a lot of moving parts here that we'll be navigating through, and we'll get back to you on it.
But Douglas, I guess if we're talking 5 permits, I mean, would that not kind of take care of itself from phasing if we needed to? If we get the permits on 41st, could we not start construction?
Exactly. That's kind of what we're thinking. If we really determine that we have a big snag on one of the 5 different permits, we may just delay on that one. So yeah, I guess that's a possibility that we kind of wanted to brace you for, that could be coming. Hoping
Yeah.
that it And obviously, it would be a much tidier process if we could just do it all at once, but it's got some challenges.
Yeah, but Rick, would we file, is it our preference to do all 5 permits at one time, or would we do them?
Well, no, and you know, there's so many factors again. The resource agencies are, you know, and they're underfunded and understaffed, and if you threw 5 permits at them at once, they'd really be mad at us. You know, so our thought is, and we're ready, and this kind of goes to the next step. We're ready to submit on permits for forest trails. We're ready. You know, we got the permits at, you know, Desiree, you guys got like the permits to sign off on and things. So that would go in first. That one's let's say the least, you know, controversial is probably not the best word, but that's the least controversial one. And it's going to go, it should go fairly quick. That one, you know, we would target, that one would probably move the fastest and could go to construction, hopefully, you know, early in the calendar year next year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we did receive that permit, and Douglas and I were reviewing it, and then we'll send you the executed copy.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So
So Rick, in your order of preference, it's 36, not preference, but doability is probably 36, 41st, and then this one.
yeah, that's I mean, they're all doable and they're all, you know, but in complications, you know, 41st does have a little bit of a complication, but I don't think it's anywhere as close as this one. So,
Got it.
you know, that channel that's out there is, you know, and these guys, they get hung up on vegetation. This one's got vegetation, that one doesn't. And this is that's gonna make that one go a lot faster. That's gonna make this one go a lot slower. So that would probably be the progress. Yeah.
Okay. Good
I
info.
think we included that as the schedule. We've updated what, you know, the schedule for Desiree, and, you know, Desiree, we probably bombarded you a little bit with too much information on that schedule, but it did help us a little bit to get our mind around it.
That was, thank you.
And then I guess, Doug, did you want us to just show the other outfalls and as the designs are where they sit?
I think those are really pretty much unchanged from what we've discussed. So unless there's a desire from Rusty or Philip to see them, they're pretty much as we've always kind of thought they would be. There's certainly more detail if you guys want to see it.
Yeah, Rusty, you want to? Wait, I want you to just take us through it real quick, Rick.
Yeah, let's do it quickly.
Okay. Similar, you know, that they do require a little bit of additional easement, but not as, you know, complicated. That the channel kind of goes out into this big like wetland, so we're not really worried about it. So here's waterway. This is what we're calling the forest trails outfall. So, you know, this is the existing easement. This is the proposed easements. The design is pretty standard, you know, head wall upstream, some riprap. We got a little complication where we need to tie into this property owner's wall. So, you know, we're trying to tread lightly there. Triple 54 pipes, a structure on the downstream side. This will have the inserts of the inline check valves. There's one little detail that we do need to add to this is what we call is a low flow valve, low flow head thing. But that's neither here nor there. There's a head wall with some riprap and then a channel. Here's the existing golf cart bridge. And, you know, what we envision is the town getting or the city getting a easement, you know, number one, to control, you know, to have access to the channel and then, you know, come down the side. But, you know, you would have to maybe just basically a memorandum of agreement, or might have to be a different easement of like an ingress egress easement where you would access from Waterway Boulevard along their cart path to get to this point. We didn't really put that in the plan or anything. And that would give you access to the project area, and then you would have access all the way down to where it kind of just goes into a marsh. This is just a big old marsh. And, we just do a little bit of grading on the channel to get it there. And then, we have access all the way out. So that's Forest Trails.
Hey, Rick, real quick, what
Yes, sir.
happened to the waterway? Are we going underneath existing waterway elevation, Waterway Boulevard, or?
Yeah, it's barely, but here's the existing elevation. This is
Yep.
not, we don't have a huge berry, but we'll have, there might, when we fix this might be slightly higher, I'm talking inches with pavement
Yeah.
and stuff, but nothing larger.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then the pathway, and if I remember correctly, the pathway is slated to get elevated through here. So, there'd be a little bit higher, pathway right here. This is so the pathway elevation is just above the top of the pipe. So you can see it's at 5. So we want to be at 6, at 6. Yeah. So we want to be up here with the pathway.
Gotcha.
And then again, this one is, as you can kind of see, it's much straightforward. We're going to permit this. So the impact really on this one to the critical area is this area right here. That's kind of considered, quote unquote, a minor, impact. The OCRM and Army Corps have already kind of like vetted this, and they said, yeah, that's not going to be that bad. We'll work with you on that. So that one's ready to go. We'll submit it and we'll work through that. And then we have other permits to work on. And then we would do a second permit for the channel here. So, again, we kind of do that to break it up. We didn't want this channel work to slow down. If somehow this gets hung up, we could actually build this and leave the channel as is and come back and do the channel work, if that's how it gets there. But it gives us a little flexibility. But right now, we think we could get them in fairly short order and get ready to go to bid. And then 41st. Any other questions on that?
No.
All right, so
Good.
get to where I need to. What is that? What did I do? This design, is pretty much done, but it needs a little cleanup on the line work. So here's a twin 42s. I'm sorry. And so if you guys recall, the 3 intermediate or internal projects are upstream of this outfall.
All right.
So this is Waterway Boulevard 41st, and it's a existing, I believe, 36-inch pipe. And so this is twin 42s at Waterway, twin 42s upstream. There's 3 other crossings of this channel going upstream, and they're all 42-inch pipes to be upside, just to give it capacity all the way through. We would basically are cleaning up this intersection. It's all going to be, this ditch is taken out. It's all going to be at one elevation, and all the drainage is going to be handled underground in pipes. A head wall here, a head wall here. And then, remember the strategy is for this channel, we wanted we're not going to fill it now or pipe it now, but we wanted the ability to fill it and or pipe it in the future. So we have shifted the control structure, the tidal control structure, to the end adjacent the intercoastal waterway. So here's the curve of 41st Avenue going into the marina. This is like the water sports guys. And so again, it's like a head wall that would go all the way across the channel, a head wall that goes all the way across the channel with a structure, triple pipes that have the valves in it to control the tide. And so what that means is, you know, even though this is like a ditch, this is a jurisdictionally claimed critical area, you know, a saltwater wetland that we would have to mitigate for. And this goes to that. So this is the largest impact of the entire project. You know, we're basically, you know, destroying this critical area. And in the future, it's not going to be a critical area. It's not going to be a wetland. And then the city has the ability to, you know, pipe it and fill it to get this additional property, if you will, or this additional parking or whatever you want. So that's that one. And this one, you know, since it's so kind of integral, you can't really separate the work. This would be one permit application. And it would be that higher level of permit application.
Gotcha.
And I guess Douglas, yeah. And then, you know, the one thought that, you know, we've been working with city staff on is the mitigation for these projects. You know, since the golf course gets a benefit from 30th, you know, that there's a you know, cost that's associated with this benefit, and we would, you know, be looking for them to contribute to or offset that cost by allowing us to do the mitigation on their property, or they participate somehow in the mitigation by the being either like we turn some of the golf course upland into critical area or something like that. So that's going to be like our first mitigation kind of attempt. Now we still got to coordinate it with them and gauge their desire to work in the public-private partnership arena.
Gotcha.
So that's the update. Douglas, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great information.
Yeah, really good, Rick and Hillary. Thank you guys for the work here. Never moves as fast or quick as we want it to go, but boy, it's complicated for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Douglas, thinking about, you know, original conversations on these three outfalls and the conceptual conversation to this, you know, what are we 3 years down the road and still struggling with how to put a shovel in the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, without a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
We're getting to the nitty gritty though, I will say. I mean,
True.
it's from very high level concept to literally down to the nuts and bolts of it. So,
Yeah. Looks good.
Sure
Rick,
does.
thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you guys are going to continue on, you don't need us. We'll just drop off.
Not unless you can fix our Dominion issues. You want to hang on for that or not? No.
Any forward dominion.
Yeah. Run like the wind, Rick.
Well, we've never had problems with Dominion, but if you guys want to talk about AT&T, I'm your man.
Your experience, certified.
Yes.
Got it.
All right.
All right.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Have a
All
good day.
Desiree, thanks. And Douglas, thanks for lining that up. That was timely and helpful. So it is seriously a jigsaw puzzle of figuring out what to do on the island. Douglas, Desiree, y'all ready to move to next? Keep rocking. Okay. We'll try to move through some of this quickly since we've already touched on a piece of it. Item B under old business, discussion of outsourcing household garbage collection services. Nothing really new there. Donnie talked about the backdoor service at Seagrove already, and hope we can continue those. That to me, that's really the learning out of what we did with the analysis and the data on the outsourcing is to start attacking some of this backdoor servicing. Desiree, anything you want to add there. Item C and D, Dominion. Desiree and I met with, gosh, I don't know, half a football team from Dominion. I guess about 3 weeks ago, Rusty, and really good conversation. You got in your package, you got a map of the underground overhead lines on the island. You got a video of Dominion presenting to the commission. It was really helpful, and I think it's some abbreviated version of that we'll probably want to do next year to council, just to get people up to speed on what it takes from their vegetation control and underground work. So Rusty, I know you just got that yesterday or day before and haven't had a chance to look at it, but the video is really pretty good, just to give you a baseline understanding of what they propose at municipality levels. So we are waiting on them to still come back with pricing on the small projects, some priorities on the smaller projects that we may be able to use the non-standard service fund for. So I don't know, we can talk about this when we get to the next meeting, but Desiree, I don't know that we haven't seen anything from them, as well as the MOU. We still have some conversations with them about and waiting on them to come back with that. So Desiree, I don't know if you have any other updates or comments around our Dominion meeting or not.
No, I mean, I thought it was very productive to have everybody in the room and kind of get the ball rolling on their development of those estimates of these projects that were contemplated a few years ago. They're still very valid and important today. And, I think we're still waiting on their original or sort of the high level pricing for these projects. And also they were going to send us a draft or language for the MOU that we can start using in preparation of that document. But I thought it was a great first step at establishing that relationship moving forward, and they understand, the need or desire to have more of a strategic plan of, for using those funds that are available to the city, although in a matching program, but some comprehensive approach to the whole undergrounding and improvements to the utility system.
Yeah, and to me, it was just a really good relationship build meeting more than anything, and sharing of information. And I think similar to what you guys are doing with DOT, we got to have relationships with these folks before we get to transactions every time. And I think we're on a good path with Dominion personally, and I will continue to push that ball. So Rusty, anything from your viewpoint? Like I said, I know you just got a lot of this information and hopefully can look at it over the next few weeks, but
Yeah, I'll look at it more closely. I glanced at it yesterday when I saw it in the deck, and really I'll take a closer look. But it looked like good progress. Thank you.
yeah, I think it is. Item E, discussion and consideration of amendments to section 5-4-32 of the city zoning code to allow for sewer pump stations with 1,000 square foot or less footprint. You'll remember this was kicked back to the planning commission. I know there's been a couple of meetings going on. So Douglas or Desiree, if you guys want to give us an update on what's happening here and the amendment to the original ordinance.
Yeah, I'll give a quick update. The planning, so as you all will recall, the amendment that got first reading and has been, was originally drafted, included really just a limit on the size of the pump station, that it would be approved at a staff level in residential districts as long as it was under 1,000 square feet. The Planning Commission took the issue up at a special meeting last Wednesday, and they have directed the staff to amend it and it would do, there's a number of amendments here. First would be, it would change what they are wanting to see is the language, change it from a staff level approval to a Board of Zoning Appeals approval as a special exception. I think that's the one change that, if I had to kind of guess what caused the most concern for the Water and Sewer Commission, it was that one. I don't think they like the idea of somewhat kind of politicizing the location of these things, because they're going to be bound by, enough challenges in terms of availability of land in their zones to get it done in the first place. So I think they felt like that may add a stress to their abilities to get things done, but nonetheless, that was the will of the planning commission. So that's what they'll be considering. The other changes are pretty, that I think that all groups found them pretty agreeable. And it was really just providing a list of 7 performance criteria that these things would have to meet. And I'll just go down and well, the first is the size, maintaining that 1,000 square foot limit on the size of it. Second, odor control, providing odor control to each and every one of them. And providing a percentage. We're trying to figure out what the right percentage is. These things, all odor control deals with the percentage of particulates it can pull out of the air. So we're going to establish a percentage there as a performance standard. Third one, it would need to be enclosed and screened with a fence or a building. So either an 8-foot fence or a building to screen it visually. Number 4, a vegetative buffer, a 10-foot vegetative buffer around the facility to add additional screening. Hopefully it would cause the facility to somewhat disappear from sight. 5th one, the group did not want persistent lighting on them. So they wanted the lighting to be designed such that it had to be flipped on while somebody was working on it and not just an all night, every night thing of being illuminated, even when nobody needs to be there or be looking at it. So it's just basically a switched light that would be on only when it's being worked on. 6th item, similar kind of theory, and that's the backup power. Some of these things would be powered by a generator, backup power. And the 6th one deals with having that power come from mobile generators so that those generators are not sitting next to houses, exercising and cycling on and off throughout the week, even when they're not needed. So the Water and Sewer Commission would keep those generators off site and just pull them onto the site when they're needed. And the 7th one is just an overall limit of the height of the lift station. Currently, the way it's worded is it would be a 12-foot height limit on equipment and a 16-foot height limit on if they chose to use a building, allowing the peak of the roof to be at 16 feet to fit all the equipment within it. So that is kind of the basis of the recommendation. They will formalize that recommendation next Wednesday. And that should be back before full council for your consideration, public hearing, second reading, hopefully at your November meeting.
Okay, great. And hey, Douglas, you may want to turn your screen off and roll your eyes at this question. I'll just give you that in advance. But so we have these pump stations on the island already, right? And some of them are in the SR1 district. So how are they grandfathered somehow, some way? Why are we having to address this now?
Yeah. So what happened is the code was basically silent for forever, really. The code was silent on these sewer pump stations, and I think they got, just kind of worked on individually as they came up over the years. I think a lot of those locations probably predate even the zoning code.
Yeah.
And I know that all those on Ocean Boulevard, there's a series of 3 or 4 on Ocean Boulevard that went in late 80s. But what happened is the city, really at the request of the Water and Sewer Commission, looked really closely at the fact that their main facility at Forest Trails plant was in the SR1 district. So the Planning Commission and the city, with a focus on that property, created a new ordinance that's now, I guess, 6, 7, 8 years old that kind of had a focus on the main facility. But what it did is it established a size limit that you had to have at least a half acre of land to do any wastewater facility at all. It had to be at least a half acre or larger. So it went kind of unnoticed, this issue of creating a problem downstream for pump stations. And really the 7th Avenue track brought to light that unintended consequence of the change made 7 years ago.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Desiree, this will just, again, we don't need action today, even though it has consideration because we don't have a draft. So this will just come before Ways and Means and Council next 2 weeks, week and a half, I guess. Right.
City council, it'll be included in the city council agenda, and council can consider an amendment to before considering second reading, and consider those recommendations from the planning commission.
Okay, that sounds good. Rusty, questions or comments from your view?
Nope, all good. It's like
Yeah.
good work the planning commission put into this.
Yeah,
Really appreciate what they've done.
yeah, the 7 items, Douglas, seem
Mhm.
right on with the feedback we've had and concerns people have put in front of us. So that seems like a good compromise maybe, or solution. Okay. Next item is, I know we're running long here today, but good information. New business discussion of beach litter and trash collection. I know we've had some email traffic on this particular topic. Desiree, do you want to defer this to a later conversation, just given our length of time, or what's your preference today?
Well, I mean, I don't think that this conversation should take very long. I spoke
Okay.
with Don about having him sort of give an update or a description of the level of services that the city provides on the beach. And I think this came about as a communication from a member of the community who had some questions about the recycling services in particular as they relate to the beach. So I think if Donnie can give us a quick update, or, again, a description of what this provides on the beach and some of the challenges that we've encountered in the past when it comes to recycling collection.
Perfect.
So I think it would be easier for me if I just explain to you the process as it exists today.
Perfect.
And of course, we have a vendor that services our beach, both the yellow barrels and the recycle barrels. On that apparatus is a white 8-yard roll-off container that the vendor, when he empties the blue cans, it goes into that container. That container is offloaded at the large municipal parking lot. So he has a recycle decal that he puts on the recycle dumpster when it's offloaded with recycle, and then the garbage dumpsters, Carolina Waste services at his expense. So when there's a recycle dumpster and the Charleston County Recycle Environmental Services truck, the recycle truck comes over there, which is different from the single family trucks. This is a front loading operation. He comes over there and he physically inspects what's in that dumpster. So what's in that dumpster, if he feels is contaminated, he refuses it. And then John, the vendor, then has to pay to have that emptied by Carolina Waste as garbage. And so for the last pure season, it's always been rejected by the driver because of the contamination with the diapers and poop bags and things like that. And so John has to now pay for that dumpster to be serviced so that he can continue with his operations. And that's the easiest way that I explain to the residents, as well as you guys now today, that question why is it not going to recycle and that kind of thing. And that's the process. It's based on the driver of the Charleston County Recycle.
Yeah, Donnie, that was going to be my comment. I mean, that's the driver coming over, basically eyeballing that load and deciding on the spot whether or not that's acceptable or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than eyeballing.
Yeah.
And just for your information, even my trucks with miscellaneous garbage, if they see something that's not conducive to the landfill where we dispose it, then they reject that load and they'll stop operation even at Bees Ferry. And my CDL driver has to go pick up a tire before they'll continue operation. So they have inspectors now. Once it gets in a truck, doesn't mean it's clear. So if you got paint cans and they see it, then they got to go get them. That's why you'll see sometimes the fellows on the back of my trucks take a paint can out of a garbage can and sit it on the side because they know that it's going to stop operations. And it's not good for the landfill.
So Donnie, I guess, and I guess the other part of some of the communication we had with some residents has been the Charleston County recycle facility itself. Has it moved or changed or had been closed or something?
So a year and a half, 2 years ago, I know that it was in the media that there was a conveyor issue at the recycle center and they stopped and they were sending it to Horry County. They have since stopped doing that. Now they're back into some of recycle going to the Moncks Corner site. It's not 100%, but what's happening there just on general single family recycle is the recycle trucks pick up your 90-gallon container. It goes to the Romney Street for a transfer. Transfer then goes, what can go to Moncks Corner to the recycle facility that they're using. So there is some sorting at the Romney Street, and then what they can't take goes to the landfill, to Moncks Corner.
Got it.
And also they are in the process of building a new processing facility. It's expected to be open in the next few months. And it's, you know, what we've been communicated from them is that they will have a hand sorting abilities there to address some of the contamination issues that oftentimes don't allow or don't permit those materials to be recycled. So we're eagerly waiting for that facility to be open.
Yeah, you'll see even on Palm Boulevard sometimes you'll see a blue can full of cardboard, and then recycle will go by and it'll still be there. Cardboard's not accepted. That's contaminant. So there's a lot of things that are going on that, you see it quite often if you pay attention. Big cardboard from Amazon and they condense them, break them down. It's not acceptable.
Desiree, anything else on this topic from your
No,
views?
I think that this was helpful, at least to get people to understand some of the challenges sometimes with recycling, particularly from the beach where we don't have a whole lot of control. We realize or recognize that the city could be doing a better job at communicating and educating folks on the beach of how to dispose materials between the two. The yellow barrels and the blue barrels. And to that end, we're, working with them for some new signage and stickers that we can update on the beach. But it's difficult because we don't have a constant monitoring or presence there, and we really rely on beachgoers for their help.
Well, and you're talking about a fluid population. It's not the same people every year. It's not the same people every month. I mean, that's an unbelievable task, I think. Rusty, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with the beach collection on recyclable. I mean, that really, with the traffic out there and it being different people every day, every week, that's more difficult than anything. I'm thinking about the recycle bins on the side of the street. Donnie, to your point, do we need to do more reinforcement or education with some of the short-term rental agencies in regards to instructions for people who may be renting short-term rentals as to what goes in those bins and what shouldn't?
Well, for me, the short-term rental is not they actually are doing the right thing because you see a lot of type of recyclables that like beer cans, soda cans, that stuff. You got more of that in your rental programs than you do with your residents that collapses your Amazon boxes. And I mean, there's some of that in the rentals, but for the most part, it's even pizza boxes. Pizza boxes are not supposed to go in that recycle bin. And it's clearly identified on the top of those blue cans.
I also wanted to mention that, sort of related, we've received some concerns or complaints from folks about people putting their recycling and garbage containers out by the curb, the side of the road earlier, or not pulling them back when they're supposed to. And I am working with Chief Cornett and our PD and livability office that reaching out to these companies that provide that service to absentee homeowners or short-term rentals to make sure that they are aware and continue to do that, pulling them out and pulling them in at the right time, because that is regulated by the code.
Rusty, anything else from your view?
No, that's a pretty big issue there. I mean,
Yeah.
With the bins going out too early or being out too late also. I don't think they're supposed to go out before, 4 p.m. the day before?
6, I think. maybe.
It's 5 p.m. the day before. However, during this time of the year, when it's dark at 5 o'clock, I would highly recommend allowing the pull out a little bit earlier. You don't want these rental companies and their employees going under houses and things like that at 7, 8 o'clock at night in the dark when there's guests and the potential for alarm.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Donnie, thank you for the update. Appreciate that. Only other item is miscellaneous business. Desiree, I know we don't typically have meetings in December. I'm just a question around where we are with Dominion. I mean, if they come back and are ready to have a conversation, I would hate not to keep that momentum going personally. Is it just preference at a committee level to do something in December or not? What's the protocol?
So there's no rule whether, about a committee not having a meeting in December. Typically hasn't happened. And I think the reason is because there is no regular meeting of council. So the committees may have a meeting and have discussion on issues, but if there is something that would require action from council, since there is no regular meeting in December, it would have to wait until the following January meeting. And that's sort of the reason why I believe that historically committees don't meet in December. The other thing is the committee assignment. In early December, the mayor will present a slate of candidates to council for consideration. Those may change, and those are then announced in January. So I believe the meeting will be scheduled for December 8th for that presentation and discussion of the committee assignments. So, it could be that the committee makeup will change, by January. So that's another reason why I believe, December, committees don't meet. But if there's a reason, I'm sure that, there's certainly no issue with meeting. And if we receive information from Dominion Energy and we want to keep the conversation going, then we can have a meeting early December for sure.
Rusty, you got a feeling one way or the other here?
If we need another meeting, I'm open to it. I mean, it's just, I agree. I mean, if we got issues that we need to address as a follow-up with Dominion or whatever, I'm certainly open to having a meeting in December.
Because I guess, it's on everybody's, or should be on your calendar for the December 3rd, I think it is that first Thursday. Yeah, I guess we can see where we are with Dominion, Desiree, and call one if we want. I would like to keep the momentum going if they have some information and are ready. And it wouldn't be anything that would have to go to council at that point anyway. It would just be getting people grounded on kind of next step. So
we'll plan on having a meeting on the 3rd, or do you want to wait and see if we get something from Dominion Energy? If we do before this date, then we can schedule it. Or do you want to set it up today?
Let's go ahead and set it up for the 3rd at 8, and then we can cancel if we hear from Dominion.
Perfect.
You okay with that? And Donnie, Robert, y'all good?
I'm good with that.
I will be here.
I hear you. Anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn,
I second.
and everybody's in favor. Great information, good agenda. Desiree, everybody else, thank you for putting this together today. I know we were long, but that was good data.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good day. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.